Greeting you in the love and in the light of the one infinite toroidal flow of divine energy that is the presence that is animating this call right now. I'm very honored and happy and grateful to have brother Brian Besco, also known as the Twisted Sage, who has been one of the greatest inspirations in the past 4 years of my life. And I was just saying this is like a sort of magnum opus for the Moona's Magicka podcast because he is one of the reasons why Moona's even exists. And whether he knows that or not, but great, great inspiration. Um, for yeah, just kind of trusting and guiding the way. And yeah, just a teacher of mine, somebody that I can trust and just very, very inspired by. So welcome, Twisted Sage, Brian Besco.
An honor and a pleasure to be here, for sure. Yeah, thank you. And it's good to be able to talk to other builders because there hasn't been that many builders around for the years. So, yeah, thank you for everything you do to promote tensor rings because that's a big deal. People really do need to know about these tools.
Truly, they're so life-changing in expanding consciousness. And I know that that's what one of your main focuses is bringing the higher consciousness of yeah, the actual like non-dual reality which is actually existing in these rings. And I made a STU qubit here before this morning before starting with the
Good.
balance and harmony template because yeah, just as a ode to this podcast. So this right here.
Wow.
So for the audience, what exactly is going on in within this ring right now?
Right. So copper's a crystal structure. So when they draw the copper wire, it aligns all the crystal structure and it creates a one-way flow of energy. I call it piezoelectric. Everybody argues that, but there's definitely a flow of energy within there. So when you fold the wire in half, twist it, bring the ends together, what's inside of that ring is a counter-rotating flow. There's a flow of energy this way and a flow of energy this way. So it's a counter-rotating vortex. And that creates that column of light, and that column of light is a counter-rotating vortex. And so it harmonizes. So you can take any tensor ring and it will harmonize water, restructures water, um, harmonizes distortions, chaos, um, EMFs that are distorted because, everybody's scared of EMFs, but truly we are an electromagnetic body. We live in an electromagnetic world. And, not everybody is as susceptible to others as some are to EMFs. So, it's really a great tool for that help in just the basics of the rings. But they're fields. So it creates a field, and within that field, the rings can dictate a frequency within the field, but not all rings have frequencies. And that's the thing is that it's more about the field than it is the frequencies within the field.
Yeah, so that's been something that I've been trying to wrap my head around because obviously we have Brother Slim with us here, which I'm gonna get into. But
Always.
so Slim was obviously he was working with the sacred and the lost qubits, and for the audience, that is basically it's the length of measure that the sacred is the 20.63 inch and then the lost was the 23.49 and Slim was working with these and uh we know that these specific lengths have a specific frequency, and Slim was measuring that with the beings that he was working with. So that was the 144 megahertz and the 177. And then you came along, you came along and had this whole new dimension of tensor technology and what we can do with it. And from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were working with Marty and you dowsed for the galactic ascension ring. And that was the first ring that we were now working with a higher consciousness beyond just that specific frequency that Slim was utilizing. So what happened there? And then yeah, how did it shift? And do you feel that that was the natural evolution of tensor rings?
So, gosh, it started when I was still working with like the Sperling qubit, the 144 megahertz. And my sister's guides, my sister, she's been my energetic mentor since the beginning. And because, my sister Brenda, humble country gal, Thoth and Metatron were just always there with her. She woke up in 1999 and had the guys at the foot of her bed. And she's like, "Who the hell are you? And what are you doing here?" And, it's been quite the journey for her ever since. And of course, 2019, a huge shift. They stepped away. But yeah, so in the beginning, she asked me to make her a sound healing ring for her crystal bowl and to call in her higher soul self. And when we did, it said, okay, you need to run this ring, this wire underwater to infuse the energetics of water into it.
Mm,
And then also at that same time, we were also working with, at the time, we had so many energetic implants. I mean, we'd wake up, it was like, I felt like if I woke up in the morning and I did not have an energetic implant, that meant that I did not raise in frequency and vibration in that 24 hours, and so I went to a crystal shop and they gave me a whole list of crystals, which I still have in the back of the studio by the sink. And I bought this handful of crystals that were to clear energetic implants. And so I held this handful of crystals underneath the water as we ran the wire through it. And it was just the intention of bringing those energies, the consciousness and frequencies and properties of those crystals into the wire.
mm,
So that's how we first began, by imprinting the consciousness, frequencies, properties into the rings, was just by intention, holding it in the hand, running it through the water. Cool thing was is that running it under the water actually hardened the rings as well, which was pretty amazing, just by imprinting that consciousness of water into them. So then, yes, when the Galactic came along, I hadn't met Marty Lucas yet. But somebody called me and said, "Hey, these guys are playing with this qubit measure, and they dowsed it in. A couple of master dowsers dowsed it in to help with their cows." And I
mm,
was like, "All right, well, let's check it out." And so I'm started making that qubit, and then finally contacted Marty. It's like, "Hey, this thing's pretty cool." But when we first started making that, my sister noticed that we began creating in a different space first, and then we bring that into the physical. In this different space, we simply called the etheric templates, the higher dimensional aspects of the tools we create. And so with this etheric templates, it was already there and established. It was mine. It was something that I had created through lifetimes as a master builder.
mm,
And so those were available right here and right now once we started working with imprinting crystals and water into the rings. That is when it showed us these etheric templates. So when the Galactic came along, that's when we really got into creating the etheric templates. So the Galactic Ascension ring, um, gosh, we put everything from every crystal, mineral, plant, consciousness, frequency, property into those templates. Um, and that was really the beginning of of us really stepping into creation of higher consciousness fields. And so yeah, that Galactic Ascension ring was really a grand one. And then ever since then, it's just been, step, step, step after, Slim helped us to create quite a few of the rings. There's actually one that we're getting ready to release. The authors at Dancing with Water, the new Science of Water. We just agreed the other day that we're going to release that regeneration qubit measure. And the reason that I hadn't before, well, I felt kind of responsible for anybody who tried to twist them because even my shop foreman at the time, my nephew, who'd been, he worked with us for 12 years, um, he couldn't even anchor in that energetic. And it was one that we didn't create it in the etheric templates first. When Dancing with Water, the authors, and Slim, and me and my sister all got together and we created that measurement. And uh, the energetics, there is no etheric template to it, to this regeneration ring. It holds its own. But man, it really did a number on me the first months that I was twisting that thing up. I mean, it made you drop your stuff. If you weren't willing to let go, it was a little harsh.
Mm,
But, I'm not my brother's keeper, so I am happy to release that measurement out into the world for everybody to utilize because it's still one of the rings that we use in the creation of the water rings for Dancing with Water, the new Science of Water.
mm,
Um, and those gals are actually the ones who introduced me to Slim. Slim Sperling, he passed away in 2007. This was in early 2010 that Dancing with Water contacted us. My sister had just channeled in the symbol, the Triskele,
mm,
or the symbol of Hedika, as we call it. Hedika, the water elemental, the consciousness of water. And I was making these things driving down the highway, going all over the country, and I was gifting them out everywhere. And, met all kinds of people that knew this symbol. There was fishermen on the East Coast that made these and put them in their holding tanks, keep their fish alive longer. There's people that are like, hey, yeah, check out my tattoo. And they'd show me their Triskelion tattoo I've been drawing since I was a kid. A lot of other people have remembrances of this on the healing walls in Atlantis, great big on the walls. Um, and this was also what first, helped me feel energy was the Hedeka. Well, Dancing with Water called us in 2010 and they were like, hey, we're scientists, but there's this guy, Slim Sperling, who sits on our front porch every night when we come home from work. He passed away 3 years ago and he has information for you on how to make tensor rings. Well, God, I was very science minded. I'd gone to college for like 20 years already. And I was like, yeah, sure. And so that was in 2010, and it's been quite a journey since then. But yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to Slim and to creating the tools. And of course, my sister Brenda she's been with me the whole way. I mean, when we work with the etheric templates, we create there together, and then it comes into the physical. And like some of these tools, like gosh, the Golden Fire, it took months for it after we created it here for us to be able to anchor it into the physical.
mm,
And then like this new energetic that just came through in June, the light field, man, that one was another rough one. We started anchoring that one in January. I tell you what, all of February I was horizontal and I didn't even leave my house. It was quite the thing where we had to be able to hold a clear space, a space of clarity before we could anchor it in. And that just means that you have to, it to me is like stepping through the threshold. You have your awakening, and then your awakening, you go down all kinds of rabbit holes and do all kinds of stuff and you don't go any farther until you are ready to step through the threshold. And that's what I did in January through June was stepping through the threshold. And that just means that you have to dump more of your junk, your identity, your everything. And Yeah, it's really quite a journey to get to this point. But it's it's what we've been doing for, we kept getting new rings and new energies, and every one of them was a giant step. And so we've gotten to the point now where we feel like, we're kind of at the end of all the energies. There's still some things we're going to tweak and redo and such. Like, we just re-released the golden fire as the golden light because it's no longer a fire, it's a light. Um, and the wisdom energetics is all brand new. So those are some energies that we're kind of revisiting, but they're way different now. Um, but yeah, it's been quite a journey, and it's all been a personal journey too. You can see I do this thing called 50 Questions Friday where I get together almost every Friday and do a live thing on YouTube. And man, I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't even want to go through and see myself over the years as I was going through the thick of it. You know. So it's nice to have stepped through the threshold and be kind of on the other side of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I was feeling that the past couple days, like just showing up on the internet. And it's actually a very vulnerable thing that we do as humans. Like it's not necessarily natural that we have this massive outreach. And like
Right.
it's yeah, there's something about it. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It could be on the flip side, like you're sharing your evolution with everybody. And yeah, it's just the pathway, I guess we've chosen, or however you want to say it. So I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about before Brian, before all I understand is he was very scientific and went to college for a couple decades. So I know the power of these tools and I understand like how important they are uh for the ascension and just for the upliftment of consciousness on the earth. Um so prior to being introduced to them and to being thrown in as a creator of them. What was your life like since you were young, and if you're open to sharing to like even when you were really young and how just everything evolved into how Twisted Sage even became a being that dedicated its life to sharing these tools. I'm always interested in the backstory.
You know, I was pretty mundane all the way through. In my 20s, I was, searching. I studied all the religions and finally said, nah, no religion for me, and it's studied them all because that's what my dad did too. He was a college professor, and he was really into studying and debunking religions and things like that, and governments and political systems. And so that was where I was at. And I guess I started to, looking back, I've always been more conscious than what I give myself credit for. Twisted Sage Studios actually started out as twistedsage.com was a vehicle for me to teach people about the monetary system and the government through the historical of how we came to be. And, I was the original conspiracy theorist before the internet, you
Wow.
know, and, um, but then, Twisted Sage Studios came along and it was actually a tattoo studio in the beginning.
No way.
So, yep. So Twisted Sage, I was actually going to call my tattoo studio In the Flesh. And I actually tattooed a fallen angel on my leg, and that was going to be my sign, In the Flesh. But at the time, still, I was not, I didn't consider myself spiritual at all, but that was starting to come through. And we actually asked a fifth grade class of life skills class. We had gotten all this grant money to start some life skills class for kids, for middle schoolers. And it was this middle school class that chose Twisted Sage as the name. And so that was Twisted Sage Studios. And so that was in 2009 or 8. And then by 2010 is when, really started to get my wake up. It was actually, one of the times like when my daughter was born, she was born in 2010. We had all these ghosts in our space, and I finally started to see ghosts, and my sister taught me how to clear them. And then my sister did a distance healing with me, and it just blew that right side of my brain away. I mean, all logic behind distance healing
Yeah.
and the miracles that can occur instantly. Um, so that was really my wake up right there. And it was at the same time I was making the rings and clearing ghosts. And so yeah, but up to that point it was pretty mundane. I grew up as a country kid and all the things. As a matter of fact, my little town of 123 that I live in right now, I grew up in a ranch probably 20 miles south of here, in a town with 16 people.
Wow.
So, but I've traveled the world. I'm not a country bumpkin. I've actually traveled the world and done all kinds of things. And, but gosh, I love the quiet solitude here. We couldn't do what we do if we were downtown LA or something like that,
So,
um, because it's a sacred space here. So,
wow. So is the studio where you manifest the tools connected to your home, or you have another space that
well, this right here is our original studio,
uh,
and that's
oh,
where.
oh my God.
Yeah, the one pyramid here. And then way back there, let's see, there's a chair chamber there. And then, yeah, it's hard to do this backwards. But behind the back behind the pyramid, there's another tall steel structure right here. And that one was our original ascension chamber that we created in 2015. There's a base to an ascension chamber that has a fruit of life floor plate in it. Um, but yeah, way in the back is where, so this whole space is where I twist wire. In the back is where we cut wire. We do electroplating. Then back in the kitchen area, we've transformed that into our resin space that's all nice and ventilated. And then this is where we worked in 2017. We became incorporated. I invited in all my family prior to that to help work. Like I said, my nephew was my shop foreman. Well, probably about 14 years. He just quit a year ago to go, live his life. Um, but we've traditionally been a family business. We were all cramped in here for years, and then we bought just a block over an old bar.
Hmm.
Um, and we transformed that into our manufacturing studio and distribution. So over there we have um, all the stations where we have all the polish and grind stations, a dual welding station, one for copper, one for silver. And we have giant shakers and tumblers and workspaces and everything else over there. So we have two different locations right here that we work from. This one's kind of primarily just my space, which is nice. So it's my office and my second home here. Yeah, all kinds of cool, crazy stuff. I mean, there's a sarcophagus, a King Tut's tomb sarcophagus back there. It was a museum replica somebody gifted me. Always been going to create a museum here because for years I collected ancient alien artifacts, went to Mexico, dug up artifacts. Um, got tons of stuff gifted to me by old shamans. Like this guy here, supposedly he's older than Jesus. It's the professor, a Mongolian skull. Just all kinds of crazy crap around here that I'd love to start a museum someday for all the artifacts. Because that was one of my big passions for a number of years was a certain set of alien artifacts that still had something beneficial for today. I usually don't like to go through old ancient stuff because even like you know Thoth's book. What was it? The Emerald Tablets. I was going to read the Emerald Tablets, and Thoth told me, he was like straight up through my sister. He's like, no, he's like, that was made for another time. This is now. So, I usually don't dredge up much from the ancient stuff because it was in another time. And with the alien artifacts, there's still something to them. They still carry something that's beneficial to us here and now.
Mm,
But otherwise, most other mm, beings that are out there, I have gone toe to toe with for many years. Like when I was clearing all the grids, we used to do grid clearing of the church grid, the Masonic grid, the state capitol grids, the Washington grid, the reservation grids, cemeteries, all the stuff. I mean, there was so many funky grids on this planet. I considered myself a master angelic warrior for many years, and that's what I did was cleared grids. And then, we created a lot of grids through the time, like the global love and gratitude grid. Let's see. Nope, don't have a brass wand here, but we created those brass wands, the golden fire and light wand that you could use to anchor columns of light. And then we worked with a lot of beings, dragons, and others that we had freed from all the other grid systems and created this new grid called the Global Love and Gratitude Grid, where you can anchor columns of light into cell phone towers, waterways, and those light anchors will hold indefinitely if needed. So light anchors was really a big thing of that whole master angelic warrior thing of fighting the dark, of living in duality. 2018 comes along and a new energy came in called the chalice energy. And this was a crystal clear, pure light. And how we seen it was like the yin yang. You have a black marble and a white marble, and they're always trying to keep balance. The chalice energy comes in. We simply called it the chalice energy because we felt that's what, it felt appropriate for the time of like the Essenes and others times where we carried this energy. I mean, it's always been on the planet. It was just never time. 2018, it was time. So this clear marble comes along and it doesn't fight the dark. It doesn't take sides with the light. It just is. That whole structure starts to fall away. And so, I mean, with this chalice energy, it was the first thing that we seen ourselves stepping into creators, because we began to be able to uncreate creation, which no longer serves. And there was entire civilizations out there that we saw and create. You know, but yeah, working with all those crazy civilizations out there, and through this whole time, the human is the grandest being in all of creation because we're the only ones who are embodied into this very unnatural state of human biology, because we are light beings. And and it was really cool because I told you about that 2019 shift, mentioned that, and that's when we saw that all these beings that used to be just walking here in this realm. I mean, I could go on days and days with stories about these entities and the things that they did and the grids and feeding off of humanity. And that's the thing is they're all energy feeders. Every one of these beings that are out there that claim to have all this knowledge and grandness, they really don't. They don't understand what it's like to be here. And when we were getting all those energetic implants, it was all of these civilizations trying to figure out love because love began here on this earth like 5,000 years ago. It was not known by soul, by source, by God. Everybody says, oh, God's love. God didn't know a sunset until the human experienced the sunset for soul. And then soul could understand what a sunset was. Same with love. That love was first discovered by humanity. And so all these energetic implants that were coming through for years, we finally realized that's what they were looking for. They were trying to figure out this thing called love to be able to package it up, take it back to their civilization. So now what we're stepping into is not only this whole ascension thing, which I call realization, and it's about being embodied versus ascending as soon as you realize consciousness and energy and it is all yours and how it works. Most of these beings, like Tobias, Saint Germain, all these guys, they pretty much left right after that. But what we're doing on this planet is staying here embodied as we step into our mastery, as we step into our understanding, consciousness, and energy. We're staying here and just living life. Um, but yeah, quite the shift from 2019, from where these beings were just everywhere and interfering with humanity. And that all ended in 2019, late 2019. And we didn't really realize it until late 2020. We're like, hey, we're usually clearing entities like every day. Why aren't we seeing entities anymore? And and so it's just been really, I guess the reason I'm saying this is just because it is so huge to see how this world has changed so much
Mm,
just in 10 years.
mm,
Just in 10 years and how much has changed on this planet. I mean, it used to be ghosts and waywards everywhere because that ethereal realm was just full of them, because because that was kind of one of my fortes is clearing ghosts. I always did the ghost busting 101 every year during Halloween. We have well, Samhain and All Saints Day, or no, November 1st. We usually do a big ghost busting sale with our golden fire tools just to help people cross them over. But yeah, they're just, I don't even see them anymore since I wear the tools because they come into the field and they're reconnected, healed, cleared, and taken home. But there was just used to be so much interference with the consciousness on the planet. And then, too, gosh, it was probably in about 2021 that things really started to let loose for everybody on the personal level. You always hear of the Akashic records of all of your lifetimes and experiences. And Cryon, Lee Carroll and Cryon, he always talked about the Akash, and I always thought it was just like set in stone. Yeah, it's a record, everything is linear. Nothing's linear. It's all happening right here and now. And it's like what started to occur was we were clearing our Akashic records. We were clearing our lifetimes. So since about 2021, as people have had different things come up, and a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, there's still an entity out here in my field. We're seeing no, it is just an old part of you, an old lifetime or an experience that is coming home. And that's part of what the awakening is that you start to, you know, integrate your experiences and lifetimes. And that can be a really tough one, especially if you don't understand what's going on. I mean, I always tell the story in 2020, I bought my first Harley, which I since sold, but,
mm,
it was something I'd always wanted. And so I bought a bike, and every time I would get on it, I would see myself rolling across the highway and at the time, like 12-year-old daughter standing there mourning my death. And, I was like, after 2 weeks, I finally called my sister. I was like, you know what? I've done my work, I feel, I don't think I'm projecting this. And that's when we finally, that's when we found it was an old lifetime, an old soul aspect that was projecting its fears and everything else through me.
mm,
And so that's what began this era of the wisdom energetics, where so all it takes is seeing it and being like, oh, hey, I see you and I see our light. There you go. We don't have to do a dang thing except for let it go, let it go, and embody our light and let it go to the light.
mm,
And that's what does all the healing and clearing. And so yeah, that was a big step in 2020 of creating this wisdom energetic line, which we've just recently redid and brought back again. But yeah, so I guess we're talking more about the path than tensor tools, but tensor tools are such an integral part of this path. I mean, and it doesn't matter if you just have a 144 megahertz tensor ring without any other cool stuff put into it, it is still a harmonizing space, and it is in a field is a space where energy and consciousness can come together. So the tensor rings are a phenomenal thing to assist you in bringing together your awareness, your presence, your understanding of your light. And so yeah, in over the years, it's all we've been doing is just refining the field
Mm.
to be more clear. Because back when I was the Master Angelic Warrior and creating like the Golden Fire and stuff, we put in there all kinds of agendas of, let's clear the dark, let's let go of, let's clear soul aspects or soul shards and bring them home. Let's do all of these huge things. I mean, my sister and I created so many modalities, I don't even remember them all throughout the years because it's stuff that we created for ourselves during our times, but then we would also utilize it with clients as well as teach it to other people. And, we would put all of those modalities also into the rings. And that's not what we're doing anymore. We are trying to create as a clear of a field as possible to allow you to step in more fully into who you are. And, and again, any tensor ring can assist with that. And, so yeah, that's totally what we're about here at Twisted Sage is really the expansion of consciousness of the planet and everybody on the planet, because that's what's going to make the world a better place. Because the consciousness and light, how much you hold, if you hold lower consciousness, you don't care about anyone or anything else, and so as your consciousness, your awareness, your light, as you expand, man, it is a better world. And so if everybody starts to step in and really connect with who they are, their light, their heart, their compassion, their joy, and clear away all of the shit that makes them uncompassionate, mean, and horrendous, and everything else. Because at the core, all of us are beautiful, beautiful lights. And so, yeah, that's totally what I want to see is people to drop their junk, drop their stories, but truly true compassion is allowing everybody their story. We don't have to step in and say, hey, the story is bullshit. It's not taking you anywhere. It's going to take you nowhere but more suffering and everything else. No, compassion is truly just allowing everybody to be on their own journey and to simply hold a light. Because again, this whole concept of holding your light, we see it as your light carries all your potentials. Some people call it other timelines, whatever. It's just potentials. Like when you are very dim and diminished and small, you have little light. You're like in this little box and you have very few potentials, very few choices. Feel like you have two choices in the world and they both suck. But as you allow in your light, it brings more potentials, more choices. Um, like with my sister Brenda, she raises high vibration beef cattle. And she got her bone right here in her finger. There was a sliding steel chute, and this heifer jumped in, totally demolished this bone. She went home, went to bed, woke up the next day, and there's not a single fracture in this bone. There's a little heart-shaped divot. And it's not that she healed it, she allowed her self to step into a higher potential. And again, you could call it a timeline just because it's more logically available, but truly it's potentials. And these potentials are what come with our light. And so the more light we hold, that we allow in, the more potentials that we have access to create our reality.
Mm.
And and there's a new light coming in, and that new light is from this wisdom energetics. Well, it's not just the wisdom energetics, it's just what's occurring naturally with humans. Is that when we release our junk, when we say, okay, there's this old trauma that's coming in, I see you, I love you, I forgive you, however your journey is with this trauma. It's basically just reconnecting it with your light. And your light does all the work. You don't fix or heal a dang thing. All you do is allow it to come to your light, and your light does the work. And so when we're releasing these lifetimes of trauma, it's creating a new light, new potentials that we did not come here with. And that is huge. Um, so, I mean, humanity really is on such a steep path right now of consciousness expansion, of realization. And it's huge, but yet it's tough to see people still stumbling around in the dark, but all you can do is smile with compassion at them. You know, the world doesn't need saved, nor does it want to be saved. you know, and that's the same with the people. The people that are on their path, they're on their path, you know. If there's something that is there, it is serving them still. They're still getting something from it, you know, and it's not lessons to be learned, and it's not, you know, things to be completed, because you can drop any of that at any time and it goes to wisdom. Your soul will distill the information and light from all of your experiences and bring it to wisdom. So there really is no completing. There's definitely no perfecting the human. You know, it's all about letting go, let go and let God, and you are God. So anyway, I probably better stop talking for a little bit here, Stephen, because I just get
There's a
on
lot.
these rants and rolls about consciousness and ascension and
Oh my
humanity
God, a
and
lot. There's a lot there. And me in the role of the interviewer, it's like where do I go? But I'm not even I know that everything is perfect right now. And we can go anywhere and that perfection will uphold because the
Mhm.
perfection, that light is just it's just behind everything and it's actually like it holds everything. It allows everything. And so we just allow. But there's I guess the main thing that it's still in my brain with this interview is just kind of like my love for Slim is deep. I just like I loved his innocence and his um he just kind of like stumbled upon the tensor ring, but I don't know if Slim had like a this like spiritual background that we were talking about like I don't did was Slim very just like he's kind of more like just scientific following what I say innocence because he was just taking the next right step forward. And I know that he had a love for freedom and for truth and um for unity, consciousness, whatever his spirituality was, but for him to be the one that rediscovered this ancient technology that is only beneficial. And that's why I love our tools so much because it's only constructive, it's only beneficial, and it will only actually support and assist us in the inner work that we have to do. And people like the ring's not gonna heal you. It's gonna hold the space, it's gonna hold that light, it's gonna support and assist us in going even deeper inwards. And that's the other thing I want to talk about is our intent and how that can even amplify the field. But I just maybe want you to share a little bit more about like how your connection with Slim and like I've watched your interviews dozens of times, especially when I first started making the rings. And you have a couple longer ones on YouTube, so I would just watch those. And I would also watch the one with Slim and Alan Steinfeld, the new realities one. And
Mhm.
I remember like making the rings and there was still doubt in me. Like this doesn't like I just have these like bouts of doubt. Like this isn't real. Like there was something in me that was like there's no way that this is creating like a beam of light, but I trusted Slim. I trusted you, and I just kept taking the next right step. I quit all of my jobs, like I quit the school I was at, and I got the download for Moona's Magicka, and I literally like opened up the Etsy shop and I just went for it, and I made mistakes. I was first twisting the copper clock counterclockwise by because I was looking at my drill and I was like holding it in one hand and I was twisting the wire. And I had a brother from Australia reach out to me and he was like, Munas, I think you're twisting the wire the wrong way. But my intent was to twist it clockwise. So that's why like I guarantee like I know Slim said, a ring shouldn't leave the shop counterclockwise, but how our intention merges with the creation of the tools. But let's just have you share a little bit about this beautiful man and how he and how you because you talked about how like Slim just kind of showed up at some point. How did he show up? Like, was it like a thought form or an actual like etheric body? I'm just curious of how that when you speak of it that way, like what was your actual connection with Slim? Because I see you as kind of there was Slim and then there was Twisted Sage, like as kind of the guides for me. Like I just felt in my heart, like I can trust these two creators. And also there's other creators that I'm aware of that I trust in Europe. But yeah, how did that all go?
Well, and that was where the gals at Dancing with Water had said, there's that guy who sits on their front porch, and that was Slim that they introduced me to. But, I still, at that moment, I still couldn't feel energy. And I was, gosh, the first 50 rings that I twisted, there was a few of them there that didn't work. There was a couple that only worked on one side. And there was one that actually put out a non-beneficial energy. And that was when I was like, okay, then, something's up here. And then that's when my sister taught me about going into the heart space, being in the heart. And, again, my energetic mentor. So my sister Brenda is actually the one who was able to speak with Slim and to, because that was her world. And so she was my go-to between Slim for all those years. Um, but you know what? It was in 2011 that Slim said, "Man, you got to put out this video. You got to teach people how to make these tools and give the measurements." So that's when we put out that video in 2011 that you'll see. That's it's an old
Yeah,
video of
it's a classic.
definitely a classic. Um, and so with Slim, I mean, I got a picture of him that hangs up above the wall there, and it's right where I twist wire, and just reminds me all the time, hey, Slim. And he is always a part of everything we do. I mean, he's been a part of helping to create several of the measurements. Um, but yeah, so it was pretty much just that, working as a with my sister as a go-between Slim and myself. And so, and then I guess when we started to bring in a lot of the new qubits, Slim was a part of many of those, but not all of them. Um, And, I guess I don't even really connect a lot with Slim anymore. And to answer one of your questions, I feel like Slim, where the word that you use, what was it that he was, it,
Innocence or just like he's
innocence. Thank you.
just kind of, all right, let's do that. And then comes across
Yes.
this like ancient technology.
Yeah. So that's all, that's what I feel about Slim is that he was very open, that he was, as the human, he was very open. And creating a non-beneficial ring. Because the very first ring that Slim and Company made, and that's the thing, is that there was like a handful of people that were part of the
Right.
creation of the tensor rings, like Bill Reed and
Mm,
um name slipped my mind. There was a lot of people that were a part of that creation. But one of those first rings that they created, it wasn't a twisted ring, and it created a dual field, one field that was non-beneficial and the other side that was beneficial. And, I still really feel like Slim never wanted to teach people in life because, again, the brother's keeper thing, he didn't want it to be, something misused.
mm,
And that, and it wasn't a monetary reason that he didn't teach people. It was, it was his widow that was about the monetary stuff.
mm.
And so with Slim, that's just what I feel is he was open. He didn't know about etheric templates, and I don't know if he even had etheric templates. I don't think he did. Um, so yeah, that's Slim's the original ringmaster. That's for
Did-
sure.
He did some wild, like with the harmonizers. I found very the intrigue with, like, obviously Slim was making these. This was kind of his magnum opus. The way
Yep.
I see it was like the rings, the AccuVac, and then he put these together in a three-dimensional. And it's like from a higher like when from the observer, you just look at all this and you're like, oh yeah, that would be the next step. Like it's all
Right.
kind of this it's been already written. We're just kind of watching the movie unfold on the screen of consciousness, but that's an interesting thing. But yeah, I loved when Slim was talking about just the Taurus, and he was going to the classic Denver experiment, and he was cleaning air pollution. Like that just blew my mind that
Right.
like that, because it's part of the more of the solution, and you just have to be at a certain level of consciousness to even like have that belief or that openness to accept that that was possible, that you could go in with these tools. And I mean, I'm curious, like, what I was going to ask you about testimonials that you've received. Like, what are some of the ones that stand out where it's just kind of mind-blowing, the miracles with the tools? Do you have
Mhm.
any stories similar to what I'm describing with Slim about that classic like cleaning air pollution? What are some of the wild things that you've seen or you've performed?
Oh man. Well, we hear of miracles and magic every flipping day from people either in our circles or customers. I mean, we have thousands of testimonials on the website from, customers. And, everything from people that are like, yeah, I know when the tools arrived in my town, I could feel them a mile away. That's a big thing. Um, but as far as like, the real miraculous stuff, one of the big things that occurred with me was before one of the jobs that I had before I started Twisted Sage was doing power line tree clearance trimming, and I had my own tree trimming business, everything. But for a while, I worked for the power companies here in the Black Hills and just climbing trees next to power lines and clearing them and such like that. But I tore both my rotator cuffs. And, I could hardly move my arms. My fingers were always numb. Um, then when we created the first Ascension Chamber, the 5D animator is what it wanted to be called, the 13-foot tall tower that I pointed out there. Man, I stood in that thing for 10 minutes. My rotator cuffs were on fire, but I didn't want to get out. Um, but after about 15 minutes after I got out, and that was what? That was been Geez, I think that was 2014, maybe, that we created that first chamber. And I have not had issues since. I mean, it cleared the rotator cuff issues. And we used to have people that would fly and drive from all over the world when the chambers were first being made just to come stand in the chambers, and people that would claim, cancer, addictions, that these things just suddenly left.
Mm,
Um, you know, we used to have a cancer treatment facility in Golden, Colorado that used our Taurus. Gosh, I don't have a Taurus here. It's like your seat of life on the wall behind you, but then you take a second one and you ratchet it just 30 degrees so that it creates 12 petals,
mm,
and that's creating the toroidal field, the tube torus. So that's why we call it the Taurus.
mm,
Um, and gosh, we were making them for a cancer treatment facility in Golden, Colorado, and they were having the best luck clearing cancer with these because the patients would simply hold it on their body wherever they felt. And we've always seen cancers beginning in the emotional field and manifesting in the physical. And so healing in our book is simply release and rebalance. And so the Taurus was helping with that release, and it definitely helps with the rebalance. All the tensor fields do because again, it's that counter rotating vortex. It's that Taurus, that tube Taurus that comes out of there that just harmonizes things. And so release and rebalance. And
wow.
gosh, let's see, one of the wands. Oh, so one of the new
Gotta get
wands.
one of those. I've been on your web. I've been on your website. I maybe you can give me a Moona's Magicka special package. I would love to.
Totally.
I would love to get like I would be wearing yours all day. So yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, the wands are pretty fantastic. But um gosh, when the wand first came out, oh gosh, I don't even remember what month, just within a couple months ago, I had this muscle tear up through the stomach because I've always had this fascia tear. And for several years, I actually had two chambers, one stacked on top of the other at a event down in Colorado. And I took it down by myself. This was in 2016, and I tore the fascia in my stomach. And it's been a long journey since then of releasing layers after layers. I mean, I even had a dragon in there for a little while, all kinds of crazy stuff, just releasing. And so I had it developed into this muscle tear. And just like 2 months ago, I think it was, when the first wand was created of this master's wand, I just sat there and spun it for like 10 seconds and no intention, just spinning the wand. And all of a sudden, this muscle tear is not there and it hasn't came back. I mean, it's flipping wild, and it kind of goes along the lines with my sister Brenda and what she does with just consciousness work, because that's pretty much what we've put into the tools is basically the what she does for energy healing. And all she does is she'll embody her light. She invites in her client, whether they're in person or not, they embody their light. And, there's a certain facet of my sister's light that comes out, this golden light we call the golden healer. It started with the golden fire, and it's just been more profound and clear, pure, I guess. But this golden light from her soul would come through, and so would the clients. And I tell you what, she was seeing cancer disappear instantly. Um, all kinds of crazy stuff. For me, if I ever get a rib out, I can text her and I can feel her push my rib back into place, and she hasn't even read the text. Um, People with pancreatic cancer sent home to die. 2 months later, they're fine. People with a fist-sized tumor in their lung, one telephone call with her, all she did was bring in the golden fire energy for the person. They just sat there and wrapped up that golden fire, their soul's light, around that fist-sized tumor in their lung. 2 weeks later, it's gone. I mean, so basically the energies that we use for healing is the same thing that we put into the rings.
Mm,
And all it is a pure connection to you. That's all it is.
wow. Yeah, I've been really diving into meditation practice, like an actual seated closed eye meditation when a few years ago I couldn't do that. I was practicing more of a open-eyed self-inquiry, kind of just going about my day, still a form of meditation, but I've been studying more of that distance quantum healing, which is it goes hand in hand with what we create. Um, but the actual it's more of a surrendering in meditation. That's what you actually just open yourself up to be sort of baptized by the light of
Yeah.
the light of love. However, doesn't
Mhm.
matter what words, but
Right.
there is a tangible feeling that you can feel when you're connecting to your heart. Something I heard yesterday from a brother was um, he he had a friend and he said her energy field when she walked in the room, it was like a diamond. It was so clear and it was just this tangible energy that everybody could feel. And she said to him, she had a specific teacher. I don't know who the teacher was, but all the teacher would teach her to have that energy field was just know know what your heart feels like. Just
Wow.
know what that feeling feels like. And also I've been studying Neville Goddard, and at the end of the day, it's the feeling. He has a book called The Feeling is the Secret. And so we're so used to that. It's something in the mind, but no, it's actually when you let go of the mind and just let
Mm.
let it in. So it's interesting that yeah, and I go like I have bouts where I'm just making the tools for like honestly, I haven't stopped for 4 years. I
Mhm.
haven't stopped, and I heard you say recently in one of the 50 questions Friday was I like it's sometimes it's hard to make the tools. Like sometimes it feels like you're forcing it, and it's something that like it's actually like it's difficult to sometimes like it's not an easy process because it's such deep energy work that we're
Mhm.
going through our own process, and just because it's a a copper ring it doesn't mean it's not difficult to put together sometimes because we're working with so much energy um and as we expand our light. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we could always do more interviews in the future as well, but this is a good like introduction. If there's anything else that you feel we could talk about before we close off our first episode together, um, anything that you feel like sharing with the Moona's community, with the YouTube community in general. Any last words?
Well, I wish we would have I wish I would have talked about the tools a little bit more and the technology. So
Yeah, yeah, let's
my
do that.
apologies, yeah, my apologies everybody for stepping off the deep end, but that's just where my passion lies in the moment. So
Yeah.
is consciousness and um yeah, I I don't even teach classes around making the tools. It's all about teaching the consciousness. And so I guess my only words are to, gosh, take a deep breath and make clear, conscious choices on how you want your energy to serve you. And what we do in the beginning as we step into conscious creators is we choose how we don't want our energy to serve you. So if there's something in your world that's just not quite right, physical, mental, emotional, life situational, take a deep breath and say no more. And I tell you what, you are a damn powerful creator. And the tensor fields simply help hold our space They're a way for us to get more into the heart because they clear out a lot of the noise. And so that's what I would implore is to buy one of those creations from Moona's Magic and place it right on your head and just simply step into your heart and just be. Because man, that's where the magic is. It's just being.
Truly, truly. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Um,
Yeah. Gosh.
yeah, well, I mean, I could keep coming up with things, but I think an hour's good, especially these days with, just people tuning in. There's so much content that you can
Yeah.
watch, and it's a good introduction, I feel, for us. But yeah, thank you for being such a great guide and teacher, and I love the way that um, you show up on the Tensor Technology group on Facebook. I just love the way that you respond, and it's so clear, and uh, it's just so it's compassionate. And as you were talking about compassion earlier, I can really feel that you live it, and yeah, you do your best to serve us and to answer questions. And there's been times when people come at me and they're like, Muna's, that's not like, because I'm so in love with the rings, and I'm so passionate, and I just want to share everything I learn. Um, and I've gone for it. I didn't have really a teacher to be like, hey, this is how you make it. Like I watched your video, and there was maybe one other video at the time that was kind of showing the way of how you make it. And now I've just absolutely run with it on on the Moona's YouTube and inspiring a lot of beings. But um yeah, just sharing from my heart, and thank you for being that for us. And yeah, I literally come to you, like that's why I message you and I tag you, because like I trust your experience with the tools. And when somebody tells me, hey, like that's not, you have to join the same ends of the wire, or like the kind of technical stuff, I have people come at me every day. I get hate messages every day, and on YouTube I get very hateful comments, and I just delete them.
Hmm.
But that's why I come on the group and I'm like, hey, like, because I genuinely care that I'm transmitting the information correctly and integrously to the best of my ability. And I know that we all have a different version of what integrity is, because it's all our subjective experience. Like something that's integrous to one person might not be integrous to the other, but I just say like, hey, this is like one way that I'm exploring this realm of consciousness now. And for any questions, we can just put it out on the Tensor group. And I suggest anybody that's listening to this, if you're interested, you definitely are interested because you're watching this, go on the Facebook group and you can ask questions. If there's any
Yeah.
concerns, like feel free. Like this is a community where we support each other. And that's true unity consciousness. And there, yeah, there's nothing to hide here, right? Like in true unity, there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to keep, and we just give when we feel the right time to give from our own heart. So
Hmm.
thank you for always showing up.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing with the tensor technology too, that the integrity of it all and getting it out there. Because I mean, you're posting stuff all the time, and it is so great to see that because and especially when it's an integrity, because it's always good to follow the way that Slim did things. I mean, Slim's tried so many things in his 16 years, and I've tried so many things in my 15 years, and Not to say that there's not all kinds of new ways that you can utilize this technology. It is very open in the way that you use it and the way that you create it. But Stephen, I really appreciate everything that you do to get this out in the world. And thank you for having me on today. And yeah, I look forward to actually come on and maybe talking about tensor rings instead of consciousness. So,
Yeah, we can always do another one, and we're brothers and we're connected, and there's always another day that we can hop on, and I always welcome you on. And yeah, I'll message you because I've been on the website so much recently, and I've just been kind of choosing, but the most of the tools that I desire, they get sold out really quickly, I guess. So maybe we can talk about a package. Yeah,
yeah.
I would love to be wearing the Twisted Sage holy light. So yeah, I really appreciate you, brother, and I love you, and thank you for thank you for all you are. And
My
yeah,
pleasure to be here.
we'll be in touch, and we'll do an episode two at some point. Maybe we can get more technical. And honestly, though, we
Mhm.
can get questions from the community, and maybe we can do more of like a back and forth, because I know, as I said in the
Yeah.
beginning, a lot of people are inspired by us, and I was inspired by you, and now I have brothers and sisters that are inspired by Moonas, and I always try to be like, hey, there was Slim, there's Twisted Sage, like this is just who I learned from and followed and trusted. And yeah, just take what resonates with you. And if you want to join the same ends of the wire together and you feel that that is 100% necessary for your tools, then absolutely do that. But in like what, so where is that, what is the actual, and then just bringing a conversation to it and not saying you're right, you're wrong, or pointing the finger, but compassionately being like, hey, this is what I feel. And when we can actually listen to each other and respond with love and help each other grow, because we're all just one being trying our best here. And we're all just trying our best, and we're all innocent, and we're all just trying to find a new way to live in harmony together. So bless your heart, brother. We'll be in touch.
That's beautiful.
Last thing
Sounds good.
Last thing is, where can everybody find you
Ah,
on,
twist.
yeah, on
Yeah.
social or
S-
whatever?
Social website, YouTube, all twistedsage.com.
Alltwistedsage.com.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, brother. We'll be
Uh, Thank you. Take care, man.
I